Year's biggest song is APT by Rosé, and Bruno Mars tops the platform's annual replay list. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Is this the tether?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
In somewhat of a surprising move, the Clippers released veteran point guard Chris Paul. The 40-year-old Paul announced last month that he would be retiring after the season. Clippers GM Lawrence Frank informed Paul that he would not finish the season while the team is in Atlanta to play the Hawks tonight. Paul flew back to LA Tuesday night. Paul played 6 of his 21 NBA seasons with the Clippers. He's the franchise's all-time leader in assists and steals. Paul appeared in 16 games this season off the bench. He was averaging a career-low 2.9 points, 3.3 assists, and 14.3 minutes. Former Lakers center Eldon Campbell passed away early Wednesday morning. The cause of death has not been released. Campbell was 57. The 6'11 Campbell, who grew up in Inglewood and started at Morningside High School, played 8 of his 15 NBA seasons with the Lakers. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Happy holidays! This holiday season, KBLA Talk 1580 wishes you and yours joy, peace, and prosperity. As we celebrate with family and friends, we're already looking forward to an exciting first quarter, packed with must-attend events to kick off the new year just right. In January, join us for our inaugural Brotherhood Brunch, bringing together community leaders, change makers, and everyday people for inspiration and connection. February means it's time for our signature Black History Month luncheon, a powerful celebration you won't want to miss. And in March, Women's History Month, we're once again hosting our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium and Luncheon, addressing the issues that matter most inside our community. From all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, happy holidays. Stay tuned for more details on these incredible upcoming events. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice, your community, your power.
I'm Tavis, Smiley. Glad to have you with us in this hour of our program. I want to put just quickly a finer point on the conversation we just had with Brianna Joy Gray. I actually saw this story yesterday, and I didn't get a chance to reference it. My friend Lyle tagged me yesterday and said, Tavis, did you see this piece? And I hadn't seen it, but I'm glad Lyle brought it to my attention. It was a piece written by George F. Will, and Lyle sent it to me in part because he knows that George Will, the longtime conservative columnist and commentator, I think George Will is brilliant. I think he's wrong a lot of times, but he's absolutely brilliant in his thinking. Knows how to make an argument. Nobody turns a phrase like George Will. He and I have had many, many debates over the years. Back in the day when I was doing all the Sunday morning shows, when I had time to fly to Washington to be on the set of Face the Nation or This Week or Meet the Press. I ain't done that in years now. I ain't got time anymore. But the point is that George Will and I have had any number of tete-a-tetes on national television on This Week, where he was a longtime contributor, still writing, of course, for the Washington Post. But he had a great line yesterday, the first line of his piece about this Pete Hegseth, Venezuela, indiscriminate boat bombing and killing of innocent people, a conversation that we just had with Brianna Joy Gray. His piece is titled, A Sickening Moral Slum of an Administration. This is a conservative, and that's his headline, A Sickening Moral Slum of an Administration. I'm going to give you his first line and encourage you to read this story. This is what a conservative is saying about the Trump administration. First line. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth seems to be a war criminal without a war. An interesting achievement. That's his first paragraph. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth seems to be a war criminal without a war. An interesting achievement. Only George Will could turn a phrase like that. I hadn't thought about it until I read the piece that he is, in fact, a war criminal. And Republicans, conservatives now are increasingly starting to voice that opinion. But a war criminal without a war. How do you do that? An interesting achievement. It's George Will's piece in the Washington Post from yesterday. I recommend that you read it. There's my final point to the first hour. Now, to the second hour. In this hour, a conversation with University of Baltimore historian Joshua Clark Davis about his new text, Police Against the Movement, the sabotage of the civil rights struggle and the activists who fought back. Indeed, there are some newly unveiled photographs which show the depth of surveillance to which Dr. King was subjected. I think I'm going to start right there. Professor Joshua Clark Davis, how are you today?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, Tavis.
It's good to have you on the program. Glad we have an hour, a whole lot to unpack here. Let me just start giving you a chance to open up a bit on these new photographs, again, which do show the way in which, specifically in New York, Dr. King was surveilled. I saw the brilliant piece that you wrote about it. Just take a few minutes right quick here just to unpack that for us first, and then we'll jump from there, sir.
Right. So I wrote a book called Police Against the Movement, and basically what I'm trying to do is to retell the story of the civil rights movement through its forgotten work against police violence, and also to tell the story that is widely forgotten, that local police surveilled, monitored, defamed, and otherwise went after the civil rights movement. Not just the FBI, not just the feds, not just J. Edgar Hoover. So the story that I published in The Intercept this last weekend focused on the NYPD's targeting of Dr. King in New York City. And I published some never before published surveillance photographs of Dr. King from when he had come back from the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony in Oslo in Norway in December 1964. So I found those photographs in the New York City Municipal Archives, police surveillance photographs, and I really use those as a window into the fact that the NYPD and many police departments across the country surveilled, monitored, tracked many members of the civil rights movement. A lot of your listeners may not be surprised by that, but again, the way we tell the story of government repression of the civil rights movement time and again focuses on the feds, the FBI, and Hoover, and we don't think about what local police departments were doing across the country, and not just physical violence, but surveillance, defamation, infiltration.
Tell me why, no naivete here, but tell me, to your mind, since you wrote the book, why that distinction, that difference does in fact matter, or ought to matter in the way we retell or rethink this period of American history.
I think one of the problems we have when we focus, for example, on J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI, and I mean, he was fascinating, he was a villain, and what he did to Dr. King and his family and other civil rights activists was very, very harmful, and we should never forget that. However, we often risk turning J. Edgar Hoover into almost this like supernatural villain. Mm-hmm. And if we focus on him too much, we really take our eye off the ball in terms of recognizing that local police forces all over the country wanted to stop, sabotage, and disrupt the civil rights movement. You know, one thing that has really stuck with me writing this book is every January, police departments across the country, you will see on their social media, they salute Dr. King on his birthday. And yet many of those same departments surveilled Dr. King, monitored him, tracked him, and really tried to stop the civil rights movement overall. And this is not just in the South. That's, again, another important point. So it has happening in everyone's backyard. And I think that's one of the really important points why I wrote this book. It didn't just happen off in D.C. It wasn't just FBI agents. It wasn't supervillain J. Edgar Hoover.
Going to be a great hour with Joshua Clark Davis. The book is called Police Against the Movement, the sabotage of the civil rights struggle and the activists who fought back. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
From California to the Carolinas, everybody's listening to Tavis. More when we come forward.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
This is the story of the one. As the purchasing manager at a manufacturing plant, she knows the only thing more important than having the right safety gear is having it there when you need it. That's why she partners with Grainger for auto reordering, so her team members can count on her to have cut-resistant gloves on hand, and each shift can run safely and efficiently. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
An official message from Medicare.
Couple more minutes, and we'll start this month's book club.
You know, I usually love a plot twist, but this year, I'm comparing my options during Medicare open enrollment.
You can't assume your current health or drug plan is the best one for you.
And you gotta make sure your drugs are covered. That's important.
So is saving money.
Review all your options at Medicare.gov. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
We're with Bridget, whose husband won't be home for months, and whose daughter is due any day. We're with Mike, who's leaving home to protect his family and yours. We're with all service members and their families who need community, connection, and maybe a bit of magic. Are you with them? Learn more at uso.org today.
Compassion sponsorship means food, healthcare, education, and most of all, being known, loved, and protected. There are thousands of kids waiting over a year. End their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Text the word radio to 83393.
If you're one of the millions of Americans behind on your taxes, if you're afraid to open your mail because IRS collection letters could be coming, listen carefully. The IRS is cracking down, taking paychecks, freezing bank accounts, revoking passports. That's a fact. But here's what most people don't know. There are official tax relief programs designed to help struggling taxpayers. Programs that could save you thousands if you qualify. No one knows these programs better than the experts at Optima Tax Relief. Optima's award-winning team will fight to protect your paycheck, your passport, and your property. Their tax attorneys and licensed professionals will work tirelessly to get you the best deal possible with the IRS. Everyday penalties and interest keep piling up, so don't wait. Call Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com. Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Your Majesty, Your Royal Highness, Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I accept the Nobel Prize for Peace at a moment when 22 million Negroes of the United States are engaged in a creative battle to end the long night of racial injustice. I accept this award on behalf of a civil rights movement which is moving with determination and a majestic scorn for risk and danger to establish a reign of freedom and a rule of justice. I refuse to accept the view that mankind is so tragically bound to the starless midnight of racism and war that the bright daybreak of peace and brotherhood can never become a reality. I refuse to accept the cynical notion that nation after nation must spiral down a militaristic stairway into the hell of nuclear annihilation. I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality.
Just a taste of the brilliance and the eloquence, the majesty of Dr. King in 1964 when he delivered his Nobel Peace Prize speech. Our guest in this hour is Joshua Clark Davis, historian, University of Baltimore, and author of the book Police Against the Movement, The Sabotage of the Civil Rights Struggle and the Activists Who Fought Back. You heard Joshua Clark Davis suggest moments ago that after Dr. King gave that speech and returned to the country, they continued to surveil him in places all across the country. It was not just J. Edgar Hoover, but indeed in New York City. Dr. King was surveilled. There are new photos that have been unveiled that give a sense, a greater sense now of the depth of the surveillance that he was under. Tell me more about what happens when he comes back from that speech, Joshua, and we'll jump from there, sir.
Well, I think basically what happened is that on the international stage, Dr. King was a hero, and there were many Americans who looked up to him, admired him. We all know that there were many who also hated him. In some ways, getting that international affirmation of a Nobel Peace Prize really posed a challenge to a lot of people who didn't like him. I think it angered J. Edgar Hoover, for example, to see him getting that prize. And I think it angered police officers in many police departments across the country to see King getting that prize. And I think in some ways they kind of dug in their heels, kind of thinking, well, this guy has somehow tricked people around the world into believing that he's doing good. Now we have to watch him more carefully because he is somehow anti-American. He somehow is close to communists. And that was kind of what police across the country were doing against the civil rights movement in general. But not just physical violence, but basically taking special attention at the members of the civil rights movement who protested the police. That's at the center of my book. And that's very forgotten that 60 years before the Black Lives Matter movement, that it was civil rights activists who were protesting police, having sit-ins in police stations, taking over roads. Not all civil rights activists, but some, and that's even before the Black Panther Party in some ways. And so that's at the heart of this book and the what I'm trying to do to retell this history of the civil rights movement.
Tell me more about these persons. Let's go straight then to the heart of the text. I've got questions about the book. But since you went there, let me follow you with this question first. Tell me about these persons. We have a pretty good idea, since we are living in this era of Black Lives Matter, what these protests look like. But let's get a bit more granular about what these protests that you're referencing and right about 60 years ago looked like then.
Okay, so one that was news to me, I'm sure a lot of your listeners know the name, the Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth.
Sure.
His name is on the airport in Birmingham. He was one of Dr. King's allies, but also famously, in many ways, even more radical than Dr. King. They didn't always agree. Fred Shuttlesworth, going back to the mid-50s, late 50s, was protesting the police in Birmingham. This is years before the police in Birmingham unleashed the attack dogs on the black children protesting in May 1963. This was years before they opened up the fire hoses. But what the Birmingham police, under the notorious Bull Connor, were doing was they were intimidating the groups that Shuttlesworth was involved in, the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights, and they would send undercover officers into churches, and they had sound trucks doing surveillance, and they were trying to use that threat of state surveillance to get people to not be involved in the movement. And Shuttlesworth and his allies saw that as early as 1959. Fred Shuttlesworth filed a federal lawsuit against the city of Birmingham and Bull Connor, and in 1960, and he was defending himself, Shuttlesworth, he put Bull Connor on the stand in a Southern courtroom. Fred Shuttlesworth, a black man, questioned Bull Connor, one of the most unrepentant segregationists in the country, and said, "Why are you watching us? Why are you surveilling us? You are violating our constitutional rights." Now,
And what does your research say or suggest to you that Bull Connor said in response to that question?
well, it was pretty funny, honestly. First of all, he was totally, flummoxed. He's not used to being questioned, and especially not being, used to question by a black man in a courtroom.
Yeah.
And yeah, he denied it all. And, Fred Shuttlesworth home a few years earlier had been bombed. A lot of your listeners will know the term Bombingham because so many homes in Birmingham were bombed, the homes of black people. And the police just always shrugged and said, hey, we don't know what to do. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that some of the police were aware of what was happening and that some of the police were Klan members. Shuttlesworth himself at the time said, I think the Klan is doing this and I think the police are complicit. On the defense stand, or on the stand in the courtroom, Bull Connor tried to turn the tables on Shuttlesworth and said, hey, I think you maybe were behind bombing your own house and kind of staging that thing. And Shuttlesworth said, let's take lie detectors, you and me, let's go. I'll do it. And Bull Connor kind of said he might, but he would never take a lie detector test to show, hey, what do you know about that bombing at Shuttlesworth's house? So now Fred Shuttlesworth lost that case, but he made a protest by doing that. And he said, we are not just going to take this surveillance and monitoring lying down. And he also was saying the police have different ways of doing violence. Yes, physical. Yes, they might be collaborating with the Klan, but they are also trying to intimidate us with surveillance. That is violence, and we won't take it.
Yeah. We were just talking in our first hour, Joshua Clark Davis, about the distinct difference between winning and bearing witness, and they're not always the same thing. And Fred Shuttlesworth did not win that case, as you mentioned, but he bore witness, and there's value in putting that on the record. So you have to be committed to bearing witness to truth and unconditional love and justice, even if you don't win. It's certainly not or at least not in the short term. Bearing witness has value in and of it, has intrinsic value in and of itself. But we were talking about that in the first hour, so I want to just put a finer point on that. So it wasn't just, to your point, you break this out rather nicely in your text. It wasn't just the FBI, it wasn't just J. Edgar Hoover. It was police departments, law enforcement all across this country. And more to the point, it wasn't just in the South. Even though we're talking about Birmingham right now. We mentioned New York City earlier and how they were surveilling Dr. King when he came back from Oslo, where he gave his Nobel Peace Prize speech. So there are a couple questions in that regard. Let me start with this. You mentioned a moment ago that in the South, in the South particularly, specifically, they were surveilling these organizations, these individuals, these institutions, with the hope of being able to blackmail people, to convince people, to scare people to not be a part of these marches, these protests, et cetera, et cetera. What then was the purpose of police surveillance in the North, out West, every place else? Because the marches were not as prevalent, of course, outside of the South as they were in the South. And we'll get to whether or not these things were coordinated in a moment here. But beyond the South, outside of the South, why were police surveilling civil rights leaders and workers?
Great question. I mean, one of the things that happened with Birmingham in 1963, and those images went all over the world. I mean, this was the George Floyd moment of the civil rights movement in 1963, seeing what happened in Birmingham and then the March on Washington that happened a few months later. But protests and marches started spreading all over the country. And so in places like New York, Chicago, LA, Philadelphia, you started having a lot more civil rights protests in 1963 and 64. And these local police in the North and West were getting worried, like, uh-oh, this Southern movement, we thought this was just about Southern segregation, but now these activists are coming to our town. Now this is becoming our problem. And I think what they tended to do, I talked a lot about these secret political intelligence units called Red Squads. They existed within most police departments. LA had one, New York had one, Chicago had one. Name a city, they probably had one. They're basically like little FBIs within the police departments. They go back to the 1920s, even earlier, trying to fight communists. But what happens in the 60s in these major northern and western cities is that those units get revived, revitalized, and expanded because they are saying, uh-oh, this civil rights movement is coming to our city and it's going to be disrupting things, blocking traffic. We've got to focus in on who these people are and their dangerous connections to people like communists, socialists, and just to expose them for what they are and to not let them take over our cities. And so this is a national phenomenon.
national phenomenon is one term for it. Was there any coordination? You mentioned earlier that we get the point loud and clear here now, that it wasn't just J. Edgar Hoover, and that's one of the reasons for this book. It's called Police Against the Movement, the Sabotage, the Civil Rights Struggle, and the Activists Who Fought Back. Again, police against the movement, not the FBI against the movement. So it's more than just Hoover, as we've already established in this conversation. But were any of these police tactics advanced in coordination with the federal government?
A lot of them were. And I think what people maybe don't realize about these red squads and these local police intelligence units is that they were closer to the ground. For example, by the late 1960s, maybe there were about 3,000 FBI agents doing political intelligence work. 3,000. But there were probably around 4,700 local police officers doing political intelligence work at the same time. So there's not only more of them, but it's like there are hundreds of police departments around the country who have these political intelligence units. Mm-hmm. They have more offices than there are FBI field offices. These detectives who work in the red squads, they are going to more marches, more rallies. They are local, and they're probably on a closer name basis even with some of these activists. Sometimes they introduce themselves. So the FBI repeatedly kind of reaches down to these lower police departments and will say things like, what do you know about Stokely Carmichael, later Kwame Ture? Or they contact the NYPD and say, what can you tell us about Bayard Rustin these days? And that coordination is happening again and again and again, and it's often revealed not only in police documents, but on the FBI documents as well.
Let me come forward for a quick second. I've got 2 minutes here, and we'll continue when we come forward. Let's do this right quick here. As you're talking, and I know you've already thought about this, but it just occurred to me, that Trump's National Guard deployment right about now is showing America what black folk have always known. Do you see parallels in Trump betting on these local cops vis-a-vis these ICE raids and what we're talking about now that's detailed in your text?
Certainly. I mean, one thing that's obvious right now is that the federal government doesn't have enough people to carry out the number of arrests and deportations that the president is saying he will do. And so they're hiring like crazy, and they're also pushing all these local departments to help them. And so they need the local departments, and they are going after the ones in particular who they claim are the so-called sanctuary cities, who they say, hey, your department hasn't helped us enough. In fact, you've gotten in the way. Now we're going to try to force you into doing this with some type of federal agreement.
Mm. Yeah, the parallels are almost eerie for me, again, given what we're watching today with the National Guard deployment and what police forces all across the country were doing to African-American protesters and others of conscience all those years ago. When we come forward, here's where I want to go. It's not just that Joshua Clark Davis has written this book, Police Against the Movement, the Sabotage of the Civil Rights Struggle, and the Activists Who Fought Back. He has another text. It's called Suppressing Dissent. And I want to link these two things up because at the end of the day, you heard him say a moment ago that the wish, the hope, the dream, the effort, the impact of what these police departments were doing was to discourage people from participating in these marches, to scare them away. That's what I would call suppressing dissent. So we'll link up these texts when we come forward. Again, our guest, our guest is Joshua Clark Davis, historian, University of Baltimore. You're listening to him right now, and I'm glad about it, on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. A McCullum High School teacher in San Antonio, Texas, has been arrested and charged with sexual assault of a child. The suspect, 46-year-old Eduardo Cantu, is listed as a teacher at the school. Police spokeswoman Emily Garvin.
We cannot put it past someone that has now been involved in this incident to not have done it to other students.
Investigators believe the attack happened on campus. NBA star Kyrie Irving is teaming up with Paul Quinn College, Texas's oldest HBCU, in a 3-year deal. Irving will outfit the school's basketball team with new sneakers, uniforms, and gear to spotlight HBCUs. And former NBA player Eldon Campbell has died at 57. Drafted by the Lakers in 1990, Campbell played 15 seasons, won a championship with Detroit in 2004, and shared the court with Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal. No cause of death has been announced. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
In somewhat of a surprising move, the Clippers released veteran point guard Chris Paul. The 40-year-old Paul announced last month that he would be retiring after the season. Clippers GM Lawrence Frank informed Paul that he would not finish the season while the team is in Atlanta to play the Hawks tonight. Paul flew back to LA Tuesday night. Paul played 6 of his 21 NBA seasons with the Clippers. He's the franchise's all-time leader in assists and steals. Paul appeared in 16 games this season off the bench. He was averaging a career-low 2.9 points, 3.3 assists, and 14.3 minutes. Former Lakers center Eldon Campbell passed away early Wednesday morning. The cause of death has not been released. Campbell was 57. The 6'11 Campbell, who grew up in Inglewood and started at Morningside High School, played 8 of his 15 NBA seasons with the Lakers. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
With the new IHOP value menu, $6 is all it takes to go to your happy place, where stacks of pancakes with bacon and eggs are just $6 every day. French toast, sausage, and eggs are, you guessed it, $6. And fluffy omelets come with a side of pancakes and only cost $6. Go to your happy plates every day at IHOP. $7 in some locations. Available every day for a limited time at participating restaurants in the U.S. Hours may vary. No substitutions. Not valid with other discounts or promotions. Prices may vary.
Break out the champagne. Everybody get a glass.
Tavis Smiley is now ranked number 16 nationally and the highest rated talk show hosted by an African American on the 2025 Talkers Heavy 100 list of the most important talk radio hosts in the nation. Last year, Tavis ranked number 33, and the year before, number 45. The Tavis Smiley Show has rapidly expanded its national syndication to now include nearly 50 radio stations across the country and counting. Congratulations, Tavis.
Yay, yay! Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed with Joshua Clark Davis, historian at the University of Baltimore, author of a new book called Police Against the Movement, the Sabotage of the Civil Rights Struggle and the Activists Who Fought Back. I mentioned suppressing dissent moments ago. So much stuff in front of me on this desk here. I was reading a companion piece, so it's not another book by Professor Clark Davis, but I was reading a companion piece about his book that was about suppressing dissent, and that's where I want to go right quick here. So what impact, what effect did, in fact, all of this police activity, this police mayhem, these police threats, attempting, of course, to sabotage the civil rights struggle, did it have any impact on the suppression of dissent?
Yes, I think what is critical for folks to remember is that violence is not always physical. And one of the things I write about in this book is what we could call slow violence. And that is the different types of harm that law enforcement, especially local police, could do to a movement without breaking bones, without cracking skulls. Yes, they did those things too, but what happened, especially in the cities of the South and in the North and in the West, after Birmingham, police realized, hey, we may not be able to get away with literally attacking Black protesters on national television. Like, there will be consequences, even if they will be light consequences. We've got to think of more sophisticated ways to hurt this movement. And I think we often think about surveillance as something, there's the notorious incident where the FBI sent the recordings to the King household and Coretta opened them up. And, that is an incident worth remembering, but it's unusual in the sense that I don't, if you read a lot of surveillance of the surveillance records of activist movements, a lot of it's pretty boring, to be honest. It's not salacious. It's not like a detective story, but the surveillance is often intended to intimidate people. It's often even visible to them, or there are hints given to them. The surveillance is supposed to sow distrust between activists and organizers, because if they don't trust each other, they can't really work together. So I think that's one of the key ways in which police surveillance, and, even if people didn't know about it, the penalties, for example, of getting folks fired from jobs, kicked out of schools, all of that stuff scared people away from the movement. And so many folks were just so scared of any attention from the police. It was so socially stigmatized that a lot of folks, once they got a whiff of the police coming around a meeting or an organization, they might agree with that group's goals, but they just would say, that's too much for me. I'm staying home. I'm not going to go to that church if there's a police officer outside with a sound truck.
The flip side of suppressing dissent is the evidence pretty clear what happened when we did, in fact, when the nation, that is, did in fact see, Joshua, the dogs and the hoses being turned on these precious babies in Birmingham, Alabama. We'll come to that in just a second. That's the flip side again of suppressing dissent when we saw it for ourselves. But I want to put a final point on what you said earlier about the package that they sent to Dr. King's house that Coretta Scott King did in fact open. It's worth remembering, to use your phrase, worth reminding ourselves that they sent King a letter and told him, you might as well just kill yourself. We are going to get you. Make no mistake about it. So you might as well just go ahead, for the sake of time and the movement and sparing yourself and sparing people, just go ahead and kill yourself. That was literally a note, a letter that they sent to Dr. King encouraging him to just off himself. Again, that's the way in which the police state was operating even then. And again, to Joshua Clark Davis's point, that was rare, but that's one of the tactics. That's how they stepped up their pressure campaign on Dr. King specifically. Since we're talking about surveillance of Dr. King, they sent him a letter and encouraged him to just go ahead and kill himself. I just wanted to pivot to that to put, again, a final point on it. Now, the flip side of my question about suppressing dissent and how successful these police were with this activity, with this engagement, with this, sabotage effort, the flip side of that is what happens when we do, in fact, see the dogs and the hoses that are being trained on these precious babies in Birmingham, Alabama. Talk about that part of the story.
Well, as many of your listeners probably know, have heard about, read about, or remember, the Birmingham police Birmingham was the most unapologetically segregated city in the South, in the country, and Bull Connor said, "We are not going to desegregate this city." One thing people forget is that Dr. King and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, they were very, very smart, very savvy about the media, and they intentionally went into Birmingham because they knew how ruthless and how violent Bull Connor and his police force was, because they knew that if they had major protests, the police department would overreact. No, they were not trying to put Black children in harm's way, but they knew that in America, a lot of people, especially a lot of white people, would not believe the level of violence and suppression of the movement unless they saw it with their own eyes on television. So King and the SCLC went in there kind of knowing, like, we might be able to get an overreaction out of these folks, and that will wake America up. Like, they knew they were getting into a situation that might wake up the nation. They did not know quite how much that would happen and how those images would go around the world. But it was very strategic because they knew a lot of people are in such denial about the level of police violence against the movement. They have to see it. Yeah. And that whole instance woke up many people in the country. I mean, many people still didn't support the civil rights movement, but it did kind of push a lot of folks to say, hey, I've got to do more. Hey, this movement deserves my help. Hey, I want to protest racism in my own community. And that was just a huge turning point, one of the biggest for the civil rights movement.
Speaking of suppressing dissent, tell me more about the way that informants helped the police wage this sabotage campaign. Specifically, I'm curious about the way you write about police agencies across the country often entrapping activists into participating in violent or illegal activities.
Right. So there was a guy in New York, for example, named Ray Wood. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners have heard about informants who worked for the FBI. But one thing they should remember is that they weren't typically FBI agents. J. Edgar Hoover was afraid of FBI agents being caught doing bad things, so he always wanted to outsource the dirty work, or at least a lot of it. The police departments, for example, the NYPD, didn't have those concerns. They hired a police officer named Ray Wood. He was a rookie, and they sent him in to infiltrate the Congress of Racial Equality in the Bronx. And they said, you need to go saddle up next to this guy named Herb Callender because he and his colleagues are doing too much to protest us in the NYPD. And Ray Wood entered that group, said he was an activist, convinced them, got into a leadership position, and he basically talked Herb Callender into performing a citizen's arrest on the mayor of New York, Robert Wagner. Your listeners can probably guess that didn't go well. And what happened was it was a crazy scheme. It was technically legal, but this police officer talked Herb Callender into doing it. It landed Herb Callender into the psych ward at Bellevue Hospital. After that, Ray Wood entered another group called the Black Liberation Front, and he basically talked them into coming up with a scheme to bomb the Statue of Liberty. And he did things like he gave them instruction manuals from the Army, how to build bombs. He gave them gasoline. He even used NYPD funds to rent a car and drive up to Canada to try to convince this woman to sell them bombs. They ended up getting dynamite, this group, and then Ray Wood tipped off the cops, of course, and the FBI, and this trio of black men in this activist group were arrested. But the whole time, under federal testimony, Ray Wood admitted, oh, yeah, I gave him the bomb manual. Oh, yeah, I gave him gasoline. Oh, yeah, I said they should do this. Oh, yeah, I drove him to Canada. It was entrapment, but the judge wasn't buying it. And those three men ended up going to prison, each of them for around a year and a half. And Ray Wood was celebrated as a hero on the front pages of newspapers across the country.
Mm-hmm. I'm seeing all kinds of questions from listeners. When we come forward here, I'm going to weave in some of their questions with my questions. I can always use the help. I appreciate it. I've got a co-host all across the country who listens to this show every day, Joshua Clark Davis. Here's one question we'll ask Joshua when we come forward. Why did the FBI and local authorities decide to overtly kill Fred Hampton in Chicago, whereas they let third parties kill leaders like MLK and Malcolm X? Here's one question. Here's another. Since all of this surveillance happened, Tavis, when Democrats controlled the Department of Justice, does this in any way, this history, sully JFK and RFK's legacy? Those are just two questions from listeners. I got my own. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Generous listening. Charitable listening. It's why everybody wants to talk to Tavis. The conversation continues when we come forward.
KBLA Talk 1580 remembers Robin Ayers on the 1-year anniversary of her passing. 1 year ago this week, we lost a remarkable and vibrant voice. Robin Ayers touched countless lives through her passion, her love, her service, and her smile, which you could see through the radio. KBLA Talk 1580 honors her memory and celebrates the legacy she left behind. Robin, your spirit lives on in every conversation, in every connection, and in every one of us, inspired by your voice. Gone, but never forgotten. KBLA Talk 1580, where voices matter.
I'm missing you. Tell me why the road turns. I'm missing you. Tell me why the road turns.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your Senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Celebrate the soul of the holidays and support Altadena and Pasadena. Join us on Monday, December 15th, 7 p.m. inside the Bram Goldsmith Theater at the Wallace in Beverly Hills for Soul of the Holidays, a joyful night of Motor City soul, gospel, and holiday classics featuring an 18-piece band, all-star vocalist, and community choirs, all in support of the Black LA Relief and Recovery Fund. This performance comes at a pivotal time for many in Altadena and Pasadena. This is their first holiday season since the devastating Altadena Eden Canyon fire, which destroyed homes and community spaces. While the physical losses are immense, the power of community remains, and your attendance directly supports recovery, resilience, and renewal. So, be sure to join us Monday, December 15th, 7 p.m. inside the Bram Goldsmith Theater at the Wallace in Beverly Hills for Soul of the Holidays, benefiting survivors of the Altadena Eden Canyon fire. For ticket information, just log on to tickets@thewallace.org. That's tickets@thewallace.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580 and the Black Freedom Fund.
Freedom is an endless meeting, So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Joshua Clark Davis, who is a historian at the University of Baltimore, author of the book Police Against the Movement, the Sabotage of the Civil Rights Struggle, and the activists who fought back. A couple questions from the audience, and we'll get back to my questions here. But these are pretty good. As I said, I got some pretty great co-hosts who listen everywhere across the country and, for that matter, around the world. Here's the first question. Why did the FBI and local authorities decide to overtly kill Fred Hampton in Chicago, whereas they allowed third parties to kill leaders like MLK and Malcolm X? Joshua Clark Davis, your thoughts?
So I have a few thoughts. First of all, I know that all of your listeners are familiar with COINTELPRO,
Sure.
the FBI's counterintelligence program, specifically the one that Hoover and the FBI launched against the so-called black extremists, launched in, I think, August 1967. One of the main arguments of my book is that local police were doing the tactics and the work of COINTELPRO, very similar stuff before COINTELPRO, and that they were pioneering some of these tactics of disruption and infiltration. I mean, the FBI had done this stuff even before COINTELPRO, but I really wanted to argue that the FBI in some ways notices what police are doing, and they didn't invent the game. And in some ways, this obsession with COINTELPRO kind of means we forget about what the police were doing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the specific question is about the killing of Fred Hampton, which I believe even an Illinois court, civil court at one point, found the police liable for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what happened in a lot of ways is that the Black Panther Party, who was very brilliant in a lot of ways, but even things like their police patrol idea, following the police, there were folks in the civil rights movement in places like Seattle and LA who were doing that before the Panthers even were created. And I wrote about that in the book. But what the Black Panthers did was they said police violence is a major problem. They put it at the center of their program, and they were fearless. They went out armed, not to attack police, but to defend themselves and to watch what police were doing to black citizens. But I think what the FBI and police very skillfully did against the Black Panther Party is said they're carrying guns. That means they are violent and anti-white and anti-police. And they very effectively used that against the Panthers. I think the civil rights movement, large parts of it, kind of realized, hey, nonviolence is a tactic. We may not all agree with it, but if we say we're nonviolent and we act that way, maybe some more white people will be listening to us or willing to listen to us. So I just think the FBI and police with the Panthers just turned it up to, turned the volume up and really notched up the attacks in a way that they couldn't get away with politically during the earlier civil rights movement. I think also Nixon and the White House really gave a green light to those attacks also. And so why didn't they do the same thing with earlier civil rights leaders? I mean, we still don't know the story behind who killed Malcolm X. We still don't know the story behind who killed Dr. King. But what I will say is that in both instances, there were undercover police officers who were surveilling them and infiltrating.
No question.
I mean, literally, when Malcolm X is killed, his bodyguard is an undercover NYPD officer named Gene Roberts. And literally in the moment that Dr. King is killed, some of the first photos, there was an undercover police officer named Morrell McCullough, a Memphis officer who was on the scene, and he runs to Dr. King's body as he is dying. Personally, I don't believe either of those police officers were involved with those men's murder, but it is still very disturbing to think about how those two undercover officers could be right there on the scene, undetected, working for local police departments.
Nope. With Dr. King and Malcolm X under surveillance, to be sure. When we come forward in our remaining moments with Joshua Clark Davis, I'll ask him whether or not any of what he uncovers in this book sullies the historical record of JFK and RFK, who were at the helm for a good part of this time period that we're talking about. We'll close out our conversation with that when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Why does Tavis say when we come forward? Because he's not going back. And you don't have to go back either. Forward ever, backward never. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA
LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project.
Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do you do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Nearly 7 million Americans aged 65 and older are living with Alzheimer's disease, or AD. But did you know that Black adults aged 65 and older are twice as likely as white adults to develop AD? You may be able to reduce your risk by managing conditions like diabetes and high blood pressure, being physically active, eating healthy, and exercising your mind. To learn more about AD, the importance of early diagnosis and intervention, and a potential treatment option, visit treatalzearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com. This message is brought to you by AZI.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
Got a few minutes left here. A couple questions I want to get out right quick here, Joshua. Does any of this new research, this new data, further sully, one could argue, the historical records of JFK and RFK?
Well, with the Kennedys, what I would say is we've learned a lot about how little they were interested in civil rights for most of the Kennedy presidency. So in that sense, it doesn't sully it a lot because if you look closely, they just didn't care that much about civil rights basically until 1963, and it became their problem because the movement was catching fire all over the country. That was very apparent with the Freedom Rides, for example. I mean, yeah, they did co-sign some of this stuff, but also what's complicated is that the FBI and Hoover often hid what they were doing. But no, the Kennedys had to be pushed to even try to support civil rights or a civil rights bill. And then it was really Lyndon Johnson who really put his political weight behind the bill and really got the thing passed. And he's not perfect either because, yes, he also was aware of some surveillance of the civil rights movement. But again, the FBI and especially local police, they didn't run everything by the president, to be honest.
Yeah. I got a minute to go here. The book is called Police Against the Movement, The Sabotage of the Civil Rights Struggle and the Activists Who Fought Back. Speaking of those activists who fought back, my sense is you can draw a direct line from then until now in terms of the fight back, which has led to peaceful protests being more and more criminalized now than ever in this country. If you agree, tell me you do, and tell me why in 60 seconds.
I certainly agree. I mean, I would say one great example is right now you see activists on the street who are videoing these ICE agents who are arresting people, deporting them, destroying families. That idea not only came from the police patrols that the Black Panthers did, but again, activists and SNCC and CORE and the civil rights movement were monitoring the police themselves with police patrols going back even a year or longer before the Panthers emerged. That's not to minimize their work, but to say this idea of watching the police is an activist idea that remains alive because law enforcement target families and activists in ways that are very, very destructive, harmful, and violent.
There's a lot in this book. Barely scratched the surface in a 60-minute conversation. Couldn't do justice to it, but did our best. His name is Joshua Clark Davis, historian at the University of Baltimore, and author of the book Police Against the Movement, the Sabotage of the Civil Rights Struggle, and the activists who fought back. Thank you, Professor Clark Davis, for your work and your witness. Thank you for the text, and thank you for this conversation about it.
Thank you, Tavis. I really appreciated being here today.
My honor to have you. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. A McCullum High School teacher in San Antonio, Texas, has been arrested and charged with sexual assault of a child. The suspect, 46-year-old Eduardo Cantu, is listed as a teacher at the school. Police spokeswoman Emily Garvin.
We cannot put it past someone that has now been involved in this incident to not have done it to other students.
Investigators believe the attack happened on campus. NBA star Kyrie Irving is teaming up with Paul Quinn College, Texas's oldest HBCU, in a 3-year deal. Irving will outfit the school's basketball team with new sneakers, uniforms, and gear to